Dust haze leads to cancellation of flights at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our series on matters arising from the postponement of the elections.
The postponement of the Presidential and National Assembly elections by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has left many issues on its trail.
And top on the list, of course, is the immediate impact of the shift in the dates of the elections on various segments of the Nigerian society, especially political parties.
Yes, Kingsley, and agents were deployed by these political parties across the country to monitor the elections. They must be paid despite the shift in dates. The economic implications of these deployments will certainly take a toll on the parties, irrespective of their strength and spread.
Now, INEC is also impacted by the shift in the date of the polls, as it has to pick up, as it were, a bigger bill incurred by hundreds of thousands of ad hoc staff, as well as, more importantly, working reassuring Nigerians of the Commission's ability to conduct the elections on the rescheduled dates. That is to say, Saturday, the 23rd of February and the 9th of March.
And this is our focus today as we continue our series on the impact of the election postponement on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. I am Kurian Umay, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian in also welcoming you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we have our regular complementary segments of newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. For now, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Joseph Johnson. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Kingsley. Thanks for joining us. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has lifted the ban on campaigns by political parties. The ban is on till 12 midnight on Thursday.
At the end of the meeting with political parties, the Commission agreed to review the decision relating to political campaigns and political adverts by the media. And the Commission agreed to extend the period for campaigning by political parties to the 21st day of February 2019. And this campaign must end by midnight of that day. So these were the two concrete decisions the Commission took.
President Muhammad Buhari has given a marching order to law enforcement agencies to deal decisively with any individual or group that attempts to sabotage the nation's electoral process through any form of malpractice. Speaking at an emergency national caucus meeting of the governing All Progressives Congress, the president vowed to ensure that Nigeria's democracy is safeguarded from abuse, no matter what it takes.
The resources they wanted, they didn't have to wait for only 6 hours to cast in the votes to tell us that it was impossible. We do not understand why this inefficiency. And we have to go into details after the election to find out who is responsible. Definitely, the reasons why such incompetence manifests itself has to be explained to the nation.
Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress says it will renew its political campaigns ahead of the presidential and National Assembly elections rescheduled for the 23rd of February 2019, in line with the provisions of Section 99 of the Electoral Act. This forms part of the resolutions at the end of its National Caucus meeting, as announced by the party's national chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, shortly after the meeting.
His commitment and is directed to the Nigerian Armed Forces that they have a duty to protect and to give confidence to the electorate. Frustrated as we are, disappointed as we are, and disillusioned as the Nigerian electorate is right now, this is the time to stand up and be counted on the side of democracy.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the statement issued by the Special Advisor Media to the Director General of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, Dr. Doyin Okupe, in which he credited Senate President Bukola Saraki with the appointment of Lai Mohammed as minister, is nothing but fiction writing. A statement signed by Special Assistant to the Minister of Information and Culture, Segun Adeyemi, noted that Lai Mohammed owes his appointment as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to President Muhammadu Buhari and no one else. The minister challenged Dr. Okupe, who concocted the story in question, to make available to Nigerians any evidence he may have to support his claims. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has directed its members to reduce petroleum pump price from 145 naira to 140 following the postponement of elections. The decision, the national president of the association, Elder Chinedu Okoronkwo, said was taken in order to motivate Nigerians to return to their respective polling stations to vote on February 23 and March 9 respectively. Elder Chinedu Okoronkwo says the decision followed the concern expressed by President Muhammadu Buhari as well as other contestants, observers and voters nationwide over the election postponement. Ipman said this is part of its contribution towards encouraging Nigerians to participate in the election process. He therefore urged all members across Nigeria to immediately comply with the directive. This Ipman president said is in view of the political situation that the country, after suddenly announced the postponement of presidential and National Assembly elections, they therefore called on Nigerians to exercise patience and come out en masse to cast their votes on the rescheduled date. Reports from across the country say sensitive materials earlier distributed to the Independent National Electoral Commission are being retrieved in line with the directive of INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu.
Ekiti State happens to be one of the first states that successfully retrieved all the materials. Everything I can confirm to you with my sister agencies and the INEC director that everything is very, very much intact.
When local governments return this material, we undertake due diligence to check in terms of what they took away, and then to be sure that nothing is missing.
Finally, airlines are counting their losses due to dust haze released through the northern parts of the country, thereby limiting the numbers of takeoff and landing. Emmanuel Ayemero reports that flights were cancelled at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport.
Before you go embark on any flight, the first thing you want to get is the weather information. So if the weather at my destination, like I'm going to Kano now, they have already, I'm aware of the weather situation in Kano, which right now is good enough for me to go. Assuming it was bad, there is nothing I can do.
We have to keep an aircraft on ground for almost 6 hours and up to 7 hours before we could fly. That's a big loss for the airline. But as for the passengers, they are not looking at it that way. They are not looking at it that way. It's because of the safety that we have to observe that parking of aircraft.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Karian and Kinsley after this break. Stay with us.
You are watching Good Morning Nigeria. Experts estimate a 2.737 trillion naira loss for businesses on election postponement. Chimobi Watanaji has more on business news.
The decision of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to postpone the Presidential and National Assembly elections earlier scheduled for Saturday, the 16th of February, is estimated to cost businesses in the country about $7.605 billion. The amount is about 2% of the country's gross domestic product, which is approximately $427 billion. As Nigerians continue to count their losses from the postponement of Saturday's polls by 1 week, markets in Abuja metropolis are yet to experience the high patronage of buyers and sellers, as most shops were without customers. Some traders lament the situation, calling on Nigerians to live above the effects of the postponement and go back to their usual businesses.
It affects me very well, as you can see no customers. Since we are standing here, do you see any customer?
This election affects my business because these tomatoes, as I no get chance sell them, the thing can't rot.
Postponing the election is really, like, it affected us very, very well. Even my mom said it's just small vegetable that she bought today because our customers did not really show up.
Here is a graphic representation of Monday's trading figures on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And with business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Thank you very much, Chimobi Walter Naji, for the business package. Mr. Parivio is next for us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And let's now welcome Bayo Altoyebe, the newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kira. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Right, Bayo, good to see you. Kirian, we'll begin with you.
All right, we have 4 newspapers now to review. Let me begin with the Nigerian Express. Nigerian Express. Let's go to the lead story of the Nigerian Express. Now, election postponement. Confusion as INEC drives APC PDP into panic mode. Buhari not in charge, says Bode George. Well, of course, we've just done the business review, and we have such repeated here on the Nigerian Express. Businesses grown, economy losses $1.5 billion. Now, Sears, who saw the postponement, is on page 5, while that of businesses grown is on page 26 of the Nigerian Express.
All right, let's have both the Nigerian Tribune and the leadership newspapers. The lead stories, of course, they are all on politics, in particular the shift in the dates of the general elections. Let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. Just, excuse me, the lead story says, snatch ballot boxes at expense of your life, Buhari warns. Details of the story can be found on pages 4 and 5. You have a number of writers to that headline. Jonathan Dogara warned against extrajudicial killing. PDP Southern Middle Belt leaders Falona Ozekhome Adegorua fault Buhari's statement, say directive illegal. President never said shoot on sight. Don't misinterpret him. That's according to Tinubu. And Oshomole talks tough, demands removal of INEC chairman and compromised Rex. That's to say resident electoral commissioners. You can see there are 2 sidebars on the front page there, what Buhari said and what sections 128 and 129 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended also say. INEC reopens campaigns. Well, INEC is not campaigning. So it's flagged, it's giving the go-ahead for the parties to resume their campaigns. Inspector General of Police, that's the acting Inspector General of Police, recalls 55 CPs deployed in states last week. And just below the name flag of the Nigerian Tribune, you have the other headlines. Face your own challenges. APC tells UK, US, EU, and others. That's page 36. And INEC can only fix new poll date after National Council of State meeting. That's attributed to the Bayelsa governor. Gunmen killed 4 NDLA officials in Ondo. That's on page 13. Bayo.
Well, let's start with the issue on campaign. In the face of rebellion against the ban on campaign, INEC has indicated that campaigns can continue. INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye, announced after Election Management Board meeting yesterday. He said the commission approved campaign by parties and candidates and can resume forthwith and end by midnight of Thursday, 21st February. He asked that a review of the preparations for the rescheduled elections has been done and briefing will be provided all stakeholders at 3 p.m. today. Meanwhile, President Muhammad Buhari says anyone who decides to snatch ballot boxes or lead talks to disrupt elections may be taking the last unlawful action. Speaking at the emergency caucus meeting of the All Progressive Congress, the president said the circumstances that led to the polls shifted will be probed after election. He said INEC had all the time and all the resources they wanted, and they didn't have to wait until 6 hours to the polls to cancel the election. He said the reason for such incompetence to manifest has to be explained to the nation. The president, however, urged the All Progressive Congress to prevail on their members to be patient and peaceful. Meanwhile, like you read, Kingsley, the All Progressive Chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, has alleged that some resident electoral commissioners have been compromised and is advising INEC to reshuffle them. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party Executive Council has summoned a meeting today. They are to meet at noon today to deliberate over the postponement of the election. There are appeals across the board. Former Botswana President Festus Mogae says it was better to postpone the election than to conduct it and have some voters left out. Mr. Mogae, who heads the observer team of the National Democratic Institute and the Republican Institute, NDI and IRI, said, though the last-minute postponement came to us as a surprise and a disappointment, but voters should exercise patience and understanding with INEC. He says the NDI and IRI observer team has advised INEC to be more transparent in tackling the election challenges it has, and therefore should always put all the information at the disposal of the people so that they will be very confident in its action. Some observer missions, too, have called for that the general election should be enjoined on INEC to finalize preparation and adhere strictly to the February 23 date. The ECOWAS and the European Union Observer Mission, as well as the Embassy of the United States, says we encourage Nigerians to ensure a free, fair, peaceful, and credible election. They also call for the support for INEC while it finalizes its preparations towards the February 23rd election. INEC has also been asked to provide regular updates and information to the public in the coming days to enhance the confidence. Meanwhile, in anticipation of to stem the apathy that could emerge from the rescheduled election, the independent marketers of petroleum have offered to reduce pump price from 145 naira per litre to 143. IPMAN President Chinedu Okoronko says it is making such a sacrifice for the rescheduled elections. They did not tell us, however, if the price will revert after the election. There are indications that the National Union of Road Transport Workers also are contemplating a reduction of transport fares to encourage voters to return to their base to vote. Airlines have indicated that they will slash fares. 2 airlines specifically has indicated that they will slash fares. One says it will slash it by 50%. Now, if we are to go by history, the highest voter turnout we recorded in Nigeria was 2003, 69%. However, the 2 other lowest turnout were recorded in 2011 and 2015. And in those 2 instances, it was because of rescheduled elections. So in 2011, it was 53.6, 2015, 43%. So there is a need to actually encourage people to come out and vote en masse.
And what is encouraging actually is the fact that the independent marketers of petroleum products, have decided to reduce the pump price of petroleum, and we also hope that the transporters will also
they've indicated
adhere to that strictly. Because I believe it's a good cooperation, with INEC and its difficulties with respect to this postponement.
Yeah, I think it's also very useful CSR. That's corporate social responsibility by both IPMAN and the airlines, Aero and ARIC.
And National Union of Road Transport Workers.
In particular, to avoid ticket racketeering. The airlines, of course, I think ARIC is indicating that flight to vote, that's what it's calling it, will be 16,000 to any of its routes. But that for you to buy the tickets, you must present a valid PVC and also at the point of check-in. I think that's very useful.
Yes.
And theirs will run up until the 11th of March. But that of Aero will elapse after the presidential election. But I think it's very important. Otherwise, you find all kinds of persons, who will go and buy tickets and then start holding and then say, look, just add 2,000 naira. That's the only one.
Well, of course, Nigerians always do business in every situation. There are guys there who are trying to see how they can use a shortcut to break even. Now, let's return to newspapers now. The last one we have here is the Nigerian pilot, which, of course, I have some trending stories. Below the nameplate, Atiku asks courts to stop Buhari security agencies from interfering with elections. It's on page 7. And now, postponement. Nigeria equity market loses 196 billion naira. And now, of course, what we have repeated in other newspapers, Buhari spits fire. That's the lead story. With 4 riders, other security agencies to shoot on site ballot box snatchers. Says those planning to snatch ballot boxes do so at the expense of their lives. As Oshomole accuses INEC of collaborating with PDP. Buhari's order a direct call for jungle justice to divert attention, that says the PDP. Now, let's go down to the bottom of the Nigerian pilot and have some stories there. Pole shift. Salif, as the ECOWAS head of observer mission, departs Nigeria. It's on page 6. Now, IPMAN directs members to slash fuel pump price by 5% for general elections. We've read that. And then Buhari APC plotting to remove INEC chairman Dogara, says that's on page 6. And Akwa Ibom police arrest 10 for burning 11 vehicles on election duty. It's on page 42. Now, Hanes will urge Igbo youth to vote on February 23. It's on page 5. But what's striking here is the issue of burning down 11 vehicles on election duty.
Yes, in fact, it happened in Akwa Ibom, and the police command there said they have paraded 63 suspects. They've been arrested for violence at Ibot Akara. 2 persons were killed and 13 vehicles were burnt on Saturday. Police Commissioner Bashir Makama says 41 of them claimed to be election observers, and they were actually alleged to have been brought in from Bayelsa, Delta, and Ondo. Also in Osun State, suspected political thugs have set ablaze some property at Igagan in Osun State. Opponent senatorial candidates of APC and PDP are trading blames. They are blaming one another for importing thugs. The Commissioner of Police, Abiodun Ege, has visited the community and has assured the community of beefing up security, and the perpetrators of the violence will be made to face the wrath of the law.
All right, Bayo, thank you. And one of the stories that Kirian read there from the Nigerian pilot, that story that has to do with the Indigo Ohaneze seeking to mobilize the Igbos, to turn out for voting on the 20th. I think it's a very significant one against the background of earlier reports of threats of boycott and various demonstrations, by members of IPOB. Yes. I think Nnamdi Kanu himself last week had said, no more boycott of the elections, proceed with that. So I think this is a significant development. It is useful to mobilize voters all across the country against also the facts that you just indicated.
Exactly. It's also surprising, too, that Nnamdi Kanu had to reverse his earlier decision because, of course, that was not a very useful decision he took earlier on. And as we have always had it, youths turn out to vote. In Igbo land, several times we had elections, we never had such a problem. So perhaps calling for on them to come is because of this postponement, which, of course, may trigger voter apathy, not just in that part of the country, but in other parts of the country.
Yeah, but don't forget, during the First Republic, there was Sambono GK, who was known as Mr. Boycott, the boycotter, the boycottables.
But actually, yes, it's very significant because if you look at the voter population, the Southeast seems to have one of the lowest voter population, particularly on the basis of the registered voters. So if there's not that tremendous appeal, the turnout could be very low. And so it's very positive for Ohaneze to come out prominently to emphasize that. But the governor of Anambra State has always been out to challenge the pronouncement by Apple about a boycott, and he has always encouraged the people to come out to vote.
That's right. Well, thanks. Leadership newspaper, very quickly, we'll take some headlines from there. The lead story is still on President Muhammadu Buhari directing ruthless action against ballot box snatchers. Now, below the nameplate of the leadership newspaper, budget delay and election uncertainty slow down imports. That story continues on page 5, along, of course, with the story on the airline slashing fares to encourage voters. And then right below the photograph of the chieftains of the APC at the caucus meeting in Abuja yesterday, you have the following headlines. We'll take some of them. It says, Lagos to open social register for the poor. That's page 14. FAC disbursed 270 billion naira to federal government in January. That's according to the Bureau of Statistics. And INEC, of course, okay, resumption of political campaigns. Page 6. As we said yesterday, with regard to resumption of political campaigns, it was, I thought it was a straightforward matter.
Yes, it was a straightforward
matter. There no need for so. But one of the parties, of course, I think, went to court also yesterday, seeking an order directing INEC to lift the ban. That, of course, will be in abeyance now, since INEC has already asked the parties.
Section 99 of the Electoral Act is clear. Campaign stop 24 hours. But however, there was consideration about Section 26, which also has a provision about rescheduled elections. And that was why I think the opinions were divided on that. But that has been sorted out now.
And even before then, some parties...
in fact, will make the atmosphere lively. And I mean, you can imagine we are expecting to vote on Saturday,
for 1 week,
and there will be silence, and there will be no campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unimaginable.
There's some curiosity about a headline I read earlier from the Nigerian Tribune, below the nameplate of the Nigerian Tribune. This has been attributed to the Bayelsa State Governor, that INEC can only fix new poll date after National Council of State meeting. I think that it appears to me to be a misconstruction of the provisions of the Constitution. INEC, of course, briefs the Council of State on the invitation by the President who summons the Council of State meeting. It is not that you want to change election date, then you'll be summoning the meeting of Council of State. I don't think that's...
with due respect, Kinsley, I question some of provisions of our laws or even the Constitution of this country, because whenever an issue comes up, you find different interpretations of a particular law. Just as what happened like what happened yesterday, after the address by the INEC chairman, with the stakeholders, that they asked him that question as to whether campaigns could continue. And he didn't give a nod to that. And that was what gave rise to all this issue of interpretations and what have you. But if election is postponed, as an ordinary Nigerian, I want to believe that we still maintain the 24 hours stoppage, before election.
But you see, laws are meant to be obeyed, and one of the cardinal principles of any democracy is the rule of law. So if there are laws, they have to be observed and obeyed. But the important thing is that I think His Excellency, the Governor of Bayelsa State, was probably looking at the precedent that was set in 2015. INEC security has said it was not safe to go on with election. INEC said they will go ahead. And the executive find it necessary to summon the National Council of States and then take a collective decision, and it prevailed on INEC to postpone the election, for which it was done for 6 weeks. Perhaps it's that precedent that His Excellency is referring to.
Yeah, but not a binding precedent.
No, certainly not.
I know that Kirian also has, almost doctrinal resistance to legal interpretations and so forth, from his political science background.
But it triggers controversies in this country. Every little issue, triggers some kind of controversies in interpreting the law. The same law that was written.
I agree with you, Kirian. You sometimes have needless argumentation over otherwise very clear provisions of the law. It's on that note, we'd like to thank our super reviewer. Bayo Atoyebe, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We are hearing now that there were no flights from Abuja yesterday. I hope there's no knock-on effect on the air freight of...
And again, some materials are still at the airport.
Materials.
You had about flight cancelled in Enugu.
Yeah.
If flight can be cancelled in Enugu because of Hamatan haze, what do you imagine will be in Maiduguri and Sokoto?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
At the fringe of the desert.
Go by road. That's what it means. Okay, Bayo. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, that's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're taking a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll still be dealing with matters arising from the shift in the polls. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. We're here at the Abuja headquarters studios. And to set the tone for our conversation this morning, which is still on matters arising from the election postponement, let's listen to comments by some travelers and drivers on the impact of the shift in the polls. They spoke to our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
Yeah, I traveled from Duse to Gao State. And it have cost me much, but I don't know exactly how much it cost me, but actually it cost me. Yeah.
They are so disappointed. Some of them came back on Sunday, yesterday, because today is work. Today is Monday, work. They cannot afford to go back again this weekend because of the cost of transportation and all these things. So they can't go back again to vote.
For voting. Unfortunately, it's not easy for them to coming back Abuja again, so they have to stay at home waiting for the vote. And some of them, they have not enough fund with them. So it's really affecting masses. This shifting of election affecting many masses, in short fact.
Since when they left on Friday, then as they postponed the election, they don't come back. You know, so this place everywhere here is dry. President, they are not here to return.
If they come back, to go back it will be hard for them because they have already seen how the matter has been like challenging.
So they are not coming back.
What do they are coming back to do again? They will waste their time there. Their little change in their pocket, they will spend it there. Begin getting some. You know, say you get as a big as person was spending money.
They won't be coming back.
Of course, they are coming back for the election. After election, they are coming back just to start their own normal activities.
Yes, some people, most of the people, they didn't come back, but some they have come back. Some they stayed at their villages until the election is over.
No, we are little. We know the many. We're scared. Some of them remain at home till the election comes.
There is someone that this travel affects them because they didn't expect that they are going to take the election back to next week, so they are still deciding to coming back or not to coming back to their work. But it affects someone that they are doing government work and they are giving them like 2-3 days to go and come back, so they don't have whether they are going to coming back or they are not going.
And joining us now in the studio to discuss the issue for today. First, we welcome Professor Abdullahi Shehu, who is a former DG Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GEBA. And of course, he is of Election Observation Platform. Prof, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
And also with us in the studio is Dr. Chris Akomas, the former Deputy Governor of Abuja State. You're welcome.
Thank you, it's nice to be here again.
All right. Also here with us in the Abuja studios, we would like to welcome a familiar face. Of course, all three of them, they are familiar faces on Good Morning Nigeria. Dr. Yunusa Tanko is the presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party, NCP, and also a former chairman of IPAC, that is the Inter-Party Advisory Council. Dr. Tanko, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Thanks for having me.
All right. And joining us from our Port Harcourt network studios, we'd like to welcome Mr. Obo Efanga. He is the resident electoral commissioner for Rivers. Mr. Efanga, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Morning, Nigeria.
And from our Kaduna studios, we welcome Awal Mohammed, Administrative Secretary of INEC in Kaduna State. Awal Mohammed from our Kaduna studios, if we can see him on the screen. Pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, you're all welcome to this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Now we're looking at the cost. There's an aftermath of the election postponement. I'd like to go to the resident electoral commissioner, Obo Efa, because INEC is actually one agency that is bearing the brunt of this particular postponement. With respect to the concerns of many Nigerians about returning of sensitive materials to safety, we also consider the cost of doing this. How has this affected INEC? Perhaps because this returning of sensitive materials are taking place across the nation. Give us a picture of the cost of doing this on INEC.
Differ from state to state, also where the materials were at the time the decision was taken to move the election by a week. For us in Rivers State, those items were still at the Central Bank of Nigeria. They were never moved out from there, even they had been partitioned local government by local government in the state. So all we needed to do was to move the items again back into the strong room of Central Bank of Nigeria. So different states would have different situations. There were some states I know that the materials up to the local government level, and they had to reverse this to the base.
Oh, well, Mr. Farabs, still with you in Port Harcourt, we had seen photographs and videos of some of your ad hoc staff, not necessarily in Rivers now, INEC ad hoc staff, core members who had been, as it were, mobilized for the elections on Saturday before the elections were called off and then rescheduled. What is the cost in all of this? I mean, there's a presumption that they would have been paid, even though lawyers will say there's a failure of consideration. Are they going to have to be remobilized, and who is going to bear the cost?
Be remobilized. They are entitled to the cost for the time that they participated in the activity. Of course, the training before the election, they are entitled to the cost for that, and also transportation costs up to the day of the election. They'll be, if they've not been paid already, they'll certainly be paid. And when they are remobilized, of course, the cost of remobilizing them would also be paid to them. So in terms of payment of entitlements to ad hoc staff, I don't think people should be worried about that. They will certainly get theirs if these monies, if they've not got them already.
Well, stay with you just before we go over to Kaduna. In terms of minimal comfort, I'm sure you must have seen on the social media some of those photographs to which we're referring. I mean, it looked like the young men and women were all camped out, some of them sleeping in decrepit buses and so on and so forth. Is there something that can be done just to up the minimal level of comfort that the ad hoc staff are supposed to have? You saw some of the photographs, if you did, they were all, lying side by side as though, they were in a detention center.
Okay, we really must apologize for some of those. It's also part of the effect of the breakdown in the logistics arrangement. Typically, people are camped in the RA centers the night before the election. And it's a campground sort of. Usually it's a public space like a public school. Facilities are there for people who are staying overnight. And importantly, if the election had progressed as it ought to, much of that night would have been used for arranging the materials and sometimes further training, training for the officials. They go out on election day, they don't have problems with what they have to do. So it's unfortunate that that night those activities didn't happen, and so we had that kind of situation. But even in those camps, we have minimal provisions for people who need to sleep at some point, and those materials are there in the rack center. It was not in some of the places that you talked about, then something must have gone amiss. It's either those places were not set up on time, which could also be due to the issue of the logistics, or that actually we'll need to look at each case and see what exactly happened in those places. But ordinarily, it's a camp setting. Like people are staying in hotels, they are staying in schools, and then facilities are provided for sleeping, mats and mattresses sometimes. So it's unfortunate that people had to go through that difficulty overnight. We really apologize for that.
Okay, well, well said, Kingsley. He has apologized for that. I will also hope that the situation could be remedied before next Saturday when the election
in all parts
will
of the
commence.
country.
In all parts of the country, yes,
by the way, yes.
Not just in Port Harcourt.
Yes,
now let's go over to Awal Mohammed, who is the Administrative Secretary, INEC in Kaduna. Awal Mohammed, you have listened to Obo Efang, because he made us to understand that the issue of returning sensitive materials to the central bank varies from state to state. In his own situation, the sensitive materials have not actually left the Central Bank of Nigeria. Let us know the situation in Kaduna State. If some of them have been moved to council areas, have they been returned? And what is the guarantee or assurances about the safety of such materials?
As my rightly said, the situations differ from state to state. Here in Kaduna, we had actually removed everything for all the 23 local governments here in the state from the central bank, and we have actually taken them to the various local governments, only for us to get a counter directive that we have to retrieve them. And as I'm talking to you, we have retrieved all of them back to the central bank. And up till late last night, what the electoral officers and myself and some of the management staff were doing was to ensure that everything was ship-shape. In other words, whenever we have to go through them, carton by carton, piece by piece, to ensure that what we really need in Kaduna is what we have. And it might interest you to know that in the course of doing that, we observed that there are certain things that do not really belong to Kaduna. We realized that there were certain things belonging to some states, and we took time to ensure that we took them to Abuja, from whence they will be distributed to the various states where they do belong. So here in Kaduna, that is the situation.
Okay, Awal Muhammad, thank you very much. We'll pause you both in the meantime, and let's take comments from the observers and then, of course, the politicians who are here with us in the studios. First, we'll turn to Dr. Chris Akumas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State. Look, the postponement of elections in some quarters has been likened to a plane which is on the runway, gaining speed for takeoff, and then suddenly the takeoff is aborted. In political terms, what does this mean for a candidate? What does this also mean for a political party? And saying this against the background of cost.
Thank you. It means a lot, huge cost. It is like running the election all over again, apart from the issue of mobilization, which takes a lot. What is involved in an election that was already set and built for just a few hours to the elections, and cancellation, or postponement was announced, is huge cost. Because for politicians, most people, payments have been made to agents. Those at the local levels, there is the collective national party expenses and issues. Then there are expenses by the candidates, and there are expenses by the politicians in their various localities and constituencies. Because like in Abia State, the materials we had moved from central bank to the local government areas. So we already had people waiting in those places. We had each ward and all that arranged vehicles outside the general arrangement to make sure that the materials, the sensitive materials, were accompanied safely to the various wards and to the units. So we had people already stationed. And as at 2:33 a.m., when that announcement was made, it was really something serious. For me, when it happened, I just remembered during the Abuja days, there was a local government election that was set to go, just like you said, like an aircraft ready to, take off. So the local government chairmanship candidates had all distributed things. One of my friends who was contesting then distributed, took goats and all those things to people. And then just as he was getting home, that announcement came that the election was postponed. The man rushed back to some of the people to see what he could retrieve. And then he saw the goats were already slaughtered. And then he said, please, can I have, even if it's one hand or one leg, so that I can have something to eat. But for the money, nobody agreed that the money was still there. Money had gone. So that is the huge cost. And then for us, apart from the cost that has to do with the election proper, the cost of enlightenment, mobilizing people, training, like even on Friday, meetings, several meetings by political parties, cost of it. So it's huge cost. And this is a situation where we have to look for this money for the party, for the candidates, for the individuals, and people look at it just as if it's just the two big political parties. And they don't seem to think of the other candidates that, their parties may not be as large. And they have gone through all sorts of things. I'm telling you, it is huge. It is very, very huge. My hope and prayer is that, because this kind of thing is just a panacea for voter party, kicks in, But my prayer, and I urge every Nigerian, is to know that this is a civic responsibility, important for us, for our tomorrow, not just us, for our children and generations to come. Let us go the extra mile of making the sacrifice, of going back to vote. It's not easy, I can tell you. Even if you decide to stay where you were at the time, it's not easy to sustain staying there, because that wasn't the plan. If you decide to go and come back, it's another set of costs. So it's huge, I can tell you that. And that is why everybody seems to be very angry at, because as at Friday, we were still asking, is there anything that would, or that can cause these elections to be postponed? And the answer was no. So what happened in between?
Kirian, I was just wondering, Dr. Akomas didn't complete the story of the goats that had been slaughtered. Was it used for pepper soup or
That's the matter for the people. Now, Kingsley, what is becoming an integral part of our political history is the issue of election, either election cancellation or election postponement. It's always been there. And one wonders when we can come to a stage where there should be some level of perfection in planning for elections. Because in other climes, elections can be called within 1 week, and they will go. It will be smooth. Now, we started 4 years ago, and we're having this issue now. Right, let's go to our friend here, Dr. Yunus Tanko, who is a presidential candidate of National Conscience Party, NCP. Now, mobilizing for election purposes is usually a huge financial task, and a financial burden on any political party, be it the major ones or even the smaller ones, as the case may be. Now, with respect to the postponement of this particular election, what does it take to remobilize, especially for parties like yours, who may not be classified as one of the big ones?
Well, a rider to your earlier suggestion or discussion when you got to the issue of, political parties having challenges and recurring decimal into the elections. I remember with nostalgia, it's unfortunate really that sometimes we tend to glorify something that really profits us. And when it doesn't profit us, it becomes an issue. And then we deviate from the focus point, of Nigeria as a country and then taking care of the interests of the populace and Nigeria in one sweep. Now, I remember with nostalgia, when I was the IPAC chairman in 2015, a very high-level individual accosted me and said, Chairman, there's a problem. That was way before the election. He now said that 15 trucks of sensitive materials. He first of all asked me, can I hold this? Can I keep a secret? That was what he used as a caveat. I said, yeah, why not? And I said, look, 15 trucks, sensitive materials, including the trucks, are missing. I said, excuse me, sir? He said, yes, they are missing. I started sweating. I was kind of confused because I am supposed to speak on behalf of the political parties and at a meeting. So I had to consult a colleague of mine. What is going on? And I said, truly, this is the situation. But I had to quickly call the attention of the chairman of INEC as at that time. This was way before the election. To tell him the situation on ground and to find a solution. You see, some of these decisions, some of these things happen instantaneously. So, and then he thought it wise to have a meeting with the political parties to ensure that there's a synergy between the political parties of what the situation is. Unfortunately, if you look at the trend of events as of now, the information getting to INEC chairman was coming at very late. It seems some of they were even not so sure of themselves that whether to go on the election or not. Some of the materials are already in the field already. So I asked a question. I asked the chairman that, look, do you have an intelligence unit attached to your office? That will have helped you in getting information. The red flag will have been on early enough for you to take a decision. So that this postponement cost a lot to the political parties. Just like as you rightly said, some of our political parties like ours, we don't have these huge resources. We have 120,000 police votes, plus or minus, in case there are even increase. Even assuming that you are paying an agent 1,000 naira per person, you can calculate, you can do the math. It's unbelievably high. But we don't even have that. We have to deal with even volunteers. Even the volunteer, you must buy them pure water or something. So it costs us a lot of money. It hinders a lot of planning. It gives it on the level of uncertainty. And then to mobilize and get the people to believe in the system becomes a Herculean task. Then the recurring decimal now, which is very, very important, we need to guard against for the future. In 2011, there was a postponement. 2015, there is a postponement. 2019, there's a postponement, meaning that probably in the next 2023, there may be a postponement. Then the voters will start thinking, am I to travel or not to travel? That's right. Doubting whether to go or not to go. Will the election take place or not? But then here the situation is. Will the INEC chairman have gone ahead with the election? I think I will support no, because materials have not gotten to certain areas. That is tantamount to rigging or intimidation or coercing. So if the man had to take a courageous decision in order to have an election that is all-encompassing, then we will support that. But then there must be a guide to what the cost will be to the political parties. We asked the chairman that, would you now refund us some of our money? Because ab initio, they're not giving anybody any money to run election. And that is sad for us because already it keeps on reducing us. And going back to my first preamble, saying that sometimes when certain things interest us, we tend to favor it. When it goes against us, we try to kick against it. I'm seeing, of course, the ruling party, of course, raising a lot of dust on the matter. When we were crying and shouting that the sequence of elections should start from the state assembly to the governor, then the Federal House of Assembly, then the presidency, nobody listened to us. The idea then was that to gravitate between the lower class up to the higher level, because the interest becomes so high because it's the presidential election. All the players are putting up all their antics to ensure that they are at advantage. But what happened to the common man on the street? Nobody cares. Because I'm telling you, had it been that we start from the state assembly to the governor, a lot of these leaders who have led us astray wouldn't come back to the office. And it could have been more interesting. The level of competition wouldn't have been this high. And then probably the election would have taken, the fleet would have taken up smoothly. Because it will go slowly, just like the plane that you say, it will go slowly and then it will pick up to the higher side. But here we are today, because we are starting with the presidential election, everybody has picked up his guns and machine guns and all ready to battle, and then putting the country in danger. And I hope that our leaders will be guided with their statements, because the statement coming out from every political party, especially those who are in power, is not only is inciting in a way, it's not giving the country a good directive of how to go. So we must be guided as to get to that. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Yunus Atanko, thank you very much. Of course, you know that there's no incitement. Nobody's been incited in terms of the comments. People have expressed their displeasure over all of it, just as you have expressed yours. But you've made a number of very useful points, along, of course, with the other guests. Professor Abdullahi Shehu, let's listen to your own thoughts on the cost and consequence of the poll shift.
Well, it's regrettable that it has happened again, but we hope it will not happen in the future. Now, what has happened has created a lot of problems, but at the same time, the problems are not insurmountable. First of all, as the other speakers clearly mentioned, there was all assurance, there were all assurances that the elections will go on perfectly. And all of a sudden, it happened at the last minute. First, let us look at the trend that has become a recurrent decimal. In 2011, it happened. But the way it happened was quite different from this, because at that time, Jega was less than 1 year in office, and he was conducting an election, and that was his first baptisma. We could see how he improved on that immediately in 2015, and it was a very, very good election. Now, if this is the baptisma for the for this current chairman, it is okay, but it becomes unacceptable because he had about more than 3 years to prepare for the election. And as the president said yesterday, he was given virtually everything he needed to do the election. So in terms of cost, yes, the cost is unquantifiable. First, on the political parties, yes, but we don't know how much they paid their agents to determine exactly the cost. But the cost also on international observers and also the Nigerian citizens themselves. Now, people have to sacrifice to go back either to their voting stations and whatever. Those who came into the country, they must have bought their flights with specific schedules. It's unfortunate and regrettable that they will have to adjust to that. For the ECOWAS, for example, I know that I have been in that system. I know the cost will be immense, because they have now been compelled to manage 2 major elections in the region on the same day. The Nigerian election, if it had taken place last week, would have given them the opportunity to concentrate on the Senegalese presidential election coming on Saturday. So now, Nigeria and Senegal are major countries in West Africa, and presidential elections will be taking place on the same day on this. And this will be a lot of strains on the resources of the ECOWAS, including those who will be monitoring the elections. Now, it has also generated interesting platform and interesting scenario in Nigeria. We have seen the barrage of accusations against the National Electoral Commission. I'm delighted to see that both major parties, the APC and the PDP, are accusing the National Electoral Commission. To me, that reinforces my confidence in the Commission that it is likely to do something better. Postponing the election is not a crime, even though it's regrettable. But we hope that what is worth doing is worth doing well. And we hope that the various steps the Electoral Commission has identified to take will take those diligently, and we are going to have a better election. On the other hand, the Nigerian citizens have put a lot of pressure also on the INEC based on what has happened, and we can see how they are putting pressure on INEC to do what is right, and INEC is also showing that it's going to renew its confidence of the Nigerian public in what it is doing. And this is the central point, that it has an opportunity now to renew its confidence of Nigerians in what it is doing, to make sure that we don't only have a free and fair election, but a transparent and credible election.
Now staying with you, Professor Abdullahi Shehu,
Yes.
your observation status, observer status at the moment,
Yes.
would be very useful here because we were talking about the cost.
Yes.
We just read in the newspaper this morning that Erling Salif, who is the ECOWAS observer mission leader, has already left the country.
Yes.
And of course, we also read about a Kenyan election observer that was stranded somewhere in Lagos. These are the ones that we saw on the newspapers. But there are many more observers who may have issues. And when an international body maps out funds for coverage or observing an election in a particular country, they don't go back to do another budgeting for it. Now, what would be, what would be the picture in terms of having enough or not having enough observers in this election? Because many may have returned to their bases because of a lack of funds to have additional 1 week that are going to experience if they have to return for this election.
Yes, indeed, one of the greatest risks to the postponement is the possibility of apathy, both on the part of the voters as well as the observers themselves. But we also thrust that democracy has become a phenomenon and something that everybody has embraced democracy and it has come to stay. So we must make different sacrifices to make sure that the process is well managed and the outcome is acceptable to everybody. We therefore hope and expect that they will have a contingency budget that will give them a leeway to review their expenses. Of course, this is a force majeure. It was not the wish of INEC itself to postpone the election. Well, with respect to potential apathy on observers, I think the percentage will be negligible. There may be many observers that may come back, but quite frankly, those that have committed to this process, I believe they are going to come back. The same thing with Nigerians. Of course, we may have percentage of apathy, but I believe and trust that the percentage is going to be minimal, very inconsequential to affect the outcome of the election. So to that extent, we trust that Nigerians will sustain the momentum and then come back to vote on Saturday.
All right. Thank you, Professor Abdullahi. And Kyria, as an addendum to that, reports also indicated that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is due back in the country on Thursday. On Thursday, that's 2 days before the presidential or National Assembly elections in Nigeria. Let's return to the REC. That's to say the Resident Electoral Commissioner for Rivers in Port Harcourt, Obo Efanga. But Mr. Efanga, with one, of course, the obvious challenge that brought about the shift in the election dates has to do with logistics. There has been a lot of focus on the national plane with regard to the challenges that INEC had. But we have also seen in various election cycles over the years that the subnational entities also have problems of logistics, which some would say, poor supply chain management. Difficult terrain, for instance, in some of the areas, Rivers being one of them, Bayelsa being others, and other mountainous regions. What ordinarily should be, in terms of lead time and appropriate mobilization period, to get to the nooks and crannies and be sure that your materials and men will arrive there on time, elections will kick off as scheduled and end as scheduled, and you have all your returns? Are the, let's say Rivers, for instance, are the subnational entities in terms of RECs fully apprised of the challenges that they will face and communicate this to the national headquarters so that the logistic challenges that we have seen now will be mitigated come Saturday?
Definitely that is being done. That's always been the case. We know that in Rivers State, for instance, we have to means of transportation. So we are not only looking at road transportation, we are also looking at ferrying materials and personnel across the rivers and the creeks to the locations where elections are conducted. So we are working on that. We have plans on that. We have the number of boats that we So have the number of vehicles that we require. We've already made arrangements for those. And we are also collaborating with other agencies, the security agencies, to support that, that materials and personnel are escorted to their locations by security personnel. And we are working with that. So we have the police, have the naval authorities and other security agencies with us to help us with that. So in some of the places where we are going to move materials and personnel through the river, we also have arrangements with the military authorities to have the gunboats that would guard this movement from shipment to the location where they are going to. And then when we get to each of the local government areas, these items are taken to the RA centers, and it is from there that they are distributed. So early, overnight, this is where you have the camping arrangement. And so overnight, those things are done. And then early in the morning, people come to the polling units, which is the closest point to the voters.
Okay, thank you, Obo Efang. And let's go to Kaduna, where we have Awal Mohammed, Administrative Secretary of INEC in Kaduna State. Awal, Kaduna may not really have the challenges of terrain, but the fact remains that some parts of Kaduna could be regarded as being volatile on the account of killings that we have had in recent past. Now, my question is there any guarantee that the logistic challenges which INEC pointed as a major reason for postponing this election will be hitch-free when it's time for you to distribute the materials, both sensitive and insensitive materials, to different parts of Kaduna preparatory for this election come Saturday?
And I'd like to allude to what my resident electoral commissioner just said. Every state has their peculiarities, and here too we have our own peculiarities. They may not necessarily be challenges in terms of geography, but in fact, we do have some places that have geographical challenges. But basically, our issues here are security. We have, I think, 2 or 3 local governments, like Birningwari and 1 or 2 others that have challenges of security. Now, there is what we call the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, and it is a kind of committee that is responsible for ensuring that the right thing is done when it comes to ensuring that men and material are secure during election processes. And we have been having a lot of meetings with them lately, and I want to believe that we have come up with solutions to basically all the problems. We had the botched elections last week, and if we use it as a kind of pointer, then we can come to the conclusion that all is going to be well. We have mapped out everything strategically toward ensuring that our men and material are taken perfectly to where they should be taken in absolute security. And I'd like to assure you that all is well. All is well here in Kaduna.
All right, Awal Muhammad, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thanks also. We are taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with aspects of the conversation. All right, well, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. There's an issue I would like Dr. Akomas and Professor Shehu to respond to. It was touched on by Dr. Tanko, and he's saying that the high stakes of the presidential and National Assembly elections, in a sense, created the kind of logistic nightmare that the electoral management body has had to face. But that if you started from bottom up, it says State House of Assembly, governorship, and right up there, there would have been a build-up to a crescendo, by which time the teething, the challenges observed, might have been mitigated. What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Akomas, first?
Thank you. You see, we will always have, when things happen, we look at it and then bring in ideas on how best to improve. But going back to what he said, in 2011, the election that was postponed wasn't presidential. It was, the National Assembly election. On that day, that it was postponed. In the previous years, we also had, issues with the lower level of elections. So yes, the presidential and National Assembly election coming up the same day is a high-stake issue. But look at what the admin secretary, the INEC admin secretary in Kaduna said. They went back just to reconfirm that all the materials they moved out, you know, are all intact, and only to discover that there were materials not meant for Kaduna. In other words, it means that if they had sent out those materials, whichever local government or wherever had been so earmarked would have had no material at all. The major problem here is that, in fact, for me, I was so happy with this team of INEC, you know, from Professor Mahmoud downwards, because they gave us long notice of dates of elections and all that. Recall and remember that the National Assembly had to reconvene at a time that they had gone on recess to make sure that the provisions needed, budgetary provisions, were provided. We have issues here of logistics, and I think the man at the helm of affairs recognizes that. That's why he has taken over and taken charge of that. These are issues, whether you start with presidential or House of Assembly and gubernatorial. If people mix up materials, if people fail to organize well to deliver to location things that should be delivered at the time it should be delivered, you will still have the same problem. So the issue here is that what happened with our organizational abilities and skills that we continue to postpone. I want us to recall and remember that the major issue why Nigerians are complaining, and even the political parties, is not that election, you know, was postponed. It's because of the way and manner, okay, that it was done. In 2015, like was stated, there were opportunities and people discussed, consultations were made. It was postponed for 6 weeks, and people prepared. They didn't have to waste resources.
All right.
The issue here is that we have problems of logistics. They are taking care of it. They've assured us, and we have every reason to believe and agree with them. More so, I am happy with the cooperation of Nigerians. The National Road Transport Workers Union of Road said they're reducing transport fares. The airline associations said they're reducing transport. IPMAN have ordered and asked their members to reduce cost of, you know, PMS by 5 naira. All this shows commitment from all quarters to make this election, you know, what it should be, to come out fair, credible, and all that. Again, talking about the language, nobody, language and what we say matters a lot. But then, you are in charge. If you are too soft, oh, he's not.
He kept quiet.
You take the position, don't forget the man, yes, a candidate, he's also the commander-in-chief. And what is important here for us is to make sure that this country remains peaceful, remains together, and we move ahead. Nobody, there was no order of shoot aside as people are saying it. It is to tell people, don't go this way because you will not enjoy it. It's not in the it's not for public good. And we must all be ready to work together to ensure peace. It's okay for people to say, let ICC come and take this person for not ensuring that elections were conducted free, fair, and this, because somebody is pretending. But it's not okay for that person to say, don't do this because we are not going to take it. Let us be fair to each other, but let us also mind our language because it you know, has a lot to do with our going forward.
All right, thank you, Dr. Akomas. One good takeaway, you know, from what we've just enumerated is the fact that where is our organizational ability and competence to handle electioneering, a situation where an agency has up to 4 years to do this planning, where Nigerians are known to be good guys when it comes to business and organization. So what happened to that? That's a very big question that you have raised. But now, the same question, Professor Abdullahi Shehu, Is bottom-up ideology for election scheduling a synonym for non-postponement of election in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. You see, in as much as we try to avoid putting blame, we must begin to change the narrative and put the blame directly in the front, in the doors of the politicians. And I will cite two examples. With respect to the scheduling of election, the INEC has responsibility to do that. But you see, what we have seen in recent past is in 2011, there was no problem with the earlier schedule that was conducted in 1979, in 1983, and even in 2003. We started graduated election from the lower level to the higher level, learning from the mistakes that were being made at the lower level, which helped us to manage the presidential election, which is the most contentious, better. Over time, because of the high contest and also because of the vested interests of politicians, they suddenly changed the arrangement of election for the presidential election to start first. And that is the highest stake. And when you start something with the highest stake, you are bound to face a lot of difficulties despite the preparation. I agree with you absolutely that it is important for everybody to plan and to plan very well, because if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So to that extent, I can see a critical problem here that we need to revisit the election rescheduling process so that we can start from the less contentious elections, and then we graduate to the most contentious. The second area, and again, I like to shift this blame to the politicians, is in the area of dealing with problems whenever they arise. We have learned from our past elections, problems arising, people saying that this election is not credible. Government, the politicians especially, have taken some measures to remediate the problems. For example, in 2007, when the election was perceived to be incredible, the government took the ball by the horns and said, okay, we would like to adjust and make sure the system is better. The Justice Ways panel was set up. It came up with very, very strong and useful recommendations. The same politicians only chose and picked what they wanted to implement, and they learned the consequential aspects of the recommendation, and until today, we're still grappling with the problem. When we had violence, again, the Lemu panel was set up, and it made very strong recommendations with respect to dealing with the problems from all angles so that we will no longer have those problems again. The recommendations were there. The government also chose and picked what it could do, and they left it like that. The same, even though the 2015 election was credible, again, the present government was not satisfied. It said, okay, it set up a committee under the chairmanship of Senator Ken Namani to review the experience of the 2015 election. And that panel also made some very strong recommendations. Where are those recommendations? They have not been implemented. So we really need to talk to our politicians, who are the major actors and the ultimate beneficiaries of the system, to understand that election is not a do-or-die affair. It's something that we do within intervals. And those that God has destined to get power will get power. So we need to clean the system for posterity and for us to sustain our democracy and progress our development in the Committee of Nations.
All right, Professor Abdullahi Shehu, thank you very much. Kirian, we already have a number of tweets that have come in. We'll take those tweets now and then return to our guests. Law Alpha C says, look, we're not talking about electoral violence. Rather, we're talking about the inability of INEC to keep to dates. The president wants desperate politicians who are bent on compromising the process to desist from illegal acts.
Now, from Olanusi Akintayo, he says, ballot box snatchers should be ruthlessly dealt with because they don't mean well for Nigeria and Nigerians.
Law Alpha C again, very quickly, it says the electoral violence may be noticed if INEC fails to get it right this time, as the people may not be patient with the commission if it fails again on the 23rd of February and 9th of March in view of the losses already recorded.
All right, from Chris Simeon, Electoral violence in this country has rendered democracy worthless. Who are those behind this menace? The politicians? How could INEC conduct free and fair polls this Saturday, where some of the sensitive materials, like ballot papers, are not fully returned to CBN? Automatically, there will be rigging.
Ifeanyi Nwaokolo tweets, says, my concern is about the reasons, isn't about the reasons given for the postponement of the voting, but what about the materials belonging to a state seen in another state like Kaduna and Kano, etc.? Is this not part of our preparedness?
All right, now from Usman Ibrahim, the election postponement cost huge, unquantifiable amount of money to individuals, groups, political parties, and the nation at large. May the postponement achieve the aim of giving Nigeria a free, fair, credible, and peaceful election.
Kirian, there's an aspect that I would like the REC and the admin secretary to talk about, and of course we'll return to our guest here in the Abuja studios. In all of this, in responding to the postponement, we've been hearing a rash of allegations and accusations amongst them that PVCs have been purchased, or that some some of the RECs, not necessarily RECs now, some officers and the INEC state offices have distributed unclaimed or uncollected PVCs to some politicians. And there is also the claim that result sheets have been found in possession of unauthorized persons. Let's begin with Obo Efanga in Port Harcourt. Tell us something. What is the utility of a PVC belonging to another person in the hands of somebody else? What?
Well, I don't see how somebody will use some other person's PVC to vote, because with the use of the smart card reader for accreditation, if you bring a PVC that is not yours, it would be clear that it's not yours. You would not be able to, you wouldn't be accredited. Now, the only other thing you can think of is that if you are in possession of PVC, it means you would have prevented the person from voting, which is unfortunate. Now, the allegations you've talked about, some of these allegations would need to be ascertained. A lot of times, especially on social media, you hear a lot of allegations of wrongdoings that you cannot ascertain. Instances, as we have facts about, we have informed the law enforcement agencies to do the right thing. If you recall, not too long ago here in Rivers State, we had a couple of our staff who were standing trial for allegations that they tampered with the permanent voters of registered voters. So let us look at each case. When we have each case, let us look at them critically. Not everything said in social media is true. A lot of people are just good at creating information that may not be true, and there are people who share this information without further. So let me stress again, if you have some other person's permanent voter's card, you will not be able to vote with it. At best or at worst, you would only have prevented the person from voting.
Yes, just to, in the same vein,
That's
really,
right.
you know, but another aspect of this should be going to Awal Mohammed in Kaduna. Now, to add to the allegations that, Kingsley enumerated when he was asking question to Obo Efanga, we heard about recalling of card readers to Abuja, and they have to be reconfigured, as the case may be. Has this been successful? Because there are thousands and thousands of card readers, across the nation that needed to be returned to Abuja for reconfiguration. Has that happened?
Yeah, I think we have to get it right. We have to get it straight. The recall of the smart card readers is not to be taken to Abuja, but to be taken to the various states. If you look at the case here in Kaduna, we have recalled all the smart card readers, close to 8,000 plus, and as I'm talking to you now, we are reconfiguring them. And we are very good at that. We have almost concluded, and you know, it is absolutely necessary for us to do that, because initially the smart card readers were configured for the elections that were supposed to have taken on the 16th of February. And since the elections have now been deferred to the 23rd, we have to record them to not Abuja, but to the state capital here. And the people in the ICT are doing a very good job of it. As a matter of fact, up to late last night, we were on it. And I think probably by later today, we should be through with the configuration. And I want to believe that the same thing is being replicated in all the other 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory.
Well, Awal Mohammed, thank you very much. Very quickly, there was an aspect of the question I asked, but which Obo, the wreck in the rivers, but didn't quite touch on. And that has to do with the allegation also of result sheets being found in possession of unauthorized persons. And my question is, what is the utility of a result sheet in the hands of an unauthorized person? Is it possible for, I mean, I'm not an EO, I'm not a politician. If I have a result sheet, what can I do with it? Can I use that to rig the election?
The good thing you said allegations. Allegations in social media are something that is very, very common. But the good thing about it is that these things that we are going to use are coded, either color-coded or coded to go in line with the election, the kind of election, or coded to go in line with the states. For instance, we have ballot papers or from ECH series that have been coded for certain local governments so that they cannot be cross-used, if I may use that word, between the local governments. They can only be used within those particular local governments. And we have the specific numbers belonging to each and every one of those from ECH forms. So that even if you go and try to make to use them, to replicate them, you cannot be successful, because we know what we printed, we have the records of what we have, and at every stage, records are being taken. For instance, when they were taken from the printers to the central bank, the records were taken. The CBN have to take the records, they have to sign for them. When we go to collect them, I will have to sign for the release from the central bank to the commission in the state, in the process taking the same numbers that the central bank did. And so it goes downwards. So that if anybody attempts to go and replicate those things, they can easily be traced. So my take is that whoever tries to do anything that is unlawful will not be successful. You cannot replicate what we did, and even if you do, they cannot, like I said, be used for any purpose whatsoever.
Okay, thank you, Awal Mohammed and Obo Efaya, for your responses with respect to the allegations. But now back in Abuja, and let's talk to Dr. Yunusa Tanko, who is a presidential candidate of NCP. Dr. Yunusa, you have had the responses of the two INEC officials, with respect to the issue of litany of accusations coming from different quarters. Now, as a presidential candidate who is actually going to face the ballot on Saturday, what is your reaction?
Well, thank you very much. There's a saying that, they say that every disappointment there's a blessing. For us now, I didn't believe that there was no postponement in election. We wouldn't have heard of what happened in Kaduna. And then that would have, we wouldn't have known how they would have even tackled the matter. But thank God it has happened. Now they can retrieve those materials and send it back to where it is. And it may be happening in some other quarters too that we do not even know. And that is one of the major reasons that checklists must be provided as regard to areas of contention with regard to the result sheets, the cards and all, because those are the issues that the INEC chairman actually pointed out. Have they been dealt with at the time provided, been able to provide for them to take care of those particular issues? And that is what we need to know, and quickly enough. And with regard to the issue of probably, blaming the politicians, maybe we are forgetting something. The government, the people in government are politicians too. They are politicians too. And so therefore, they must take responsibility of what they do as regard to their body language or the statement that they make, because that is exactly what will propel the electorate to act for or against, as the case may be. And probably that takes us back to the actual fundamentals. Is the system as clinical as possible? Everybody that you see in some of the institutions, they are Nigerians and they are human beings. And they, of course, have their allegiance or interest to a particular political party or another. For example, now, when we come back to the issue of selection of commissioners and the INEC chairman itself, what are the parameters that is being put on ground to exactly choose exactly who become who in the INEC? And that is what takes us back to the issue of the waste report, which a lot of us have alluded to the fact that it's a good report that needs to be dealt with. I'm happy that the professor mentioned that the waste report was good, and then Ken Inamani report, but then the politician in power, what have they done as regard to this particular report? Have they used it? Definitely no. And here is what we needed to do. We need to have a checklist as regard to who we appoint. And even at the point of appointing, we need to have a good a kind of a record of whoever that's going to be in INEC. What is his affiliation? What political party does he belong to? And does he have any affiliation with any political party? That must be done so that we can have people of impeccable character to be in that particular level. And this brings us back completely to the balkanization of INEC, as it were. Some of the members of INEC have said it clearly that the work is so huge, and that is the reason why INEC should be unbundled to three: the issue of delineation and the statistics of areas of voting. That will be given to at least a National Population Commission or the Bureau of Statistics. They can work together. When we talk about Enforcement Commission, which now have to deal with electoral malpractices and all, these are things that we need to do. Then we cannot give Electoral Monitoring Commission to deal specifically with the preparation for election. That way, we will have at least close to having a perfect election, as we all of us are hoping for.
Well, Dr. Tanko, please, I want to return to this question, because there have been reports. I didn't cite the social media as the authority for the allegations. These allegations have also been reported in the traditional media. Why is it that during elections, some politicians are said to hunt for election result sheets? And in some cases, you had seen them, they will go to a police station and say they want to see the result sheet to be sure that it is the authentic one, which is why I asked the question. What is the utility of a result sheet? Assuming it's a sensitive material, yeah, and it probably has disappeared from the regular trade. What is the utility in the hands of an unauthorized person? Some say that it is one of the things that they use for rigging. Should there be concern about result sheets said to be flying around or unaccounted for?
Of course, there must be. It's criminal for you to have such a document in your hand when you are not an electoral officer. And there are a series of demands for that particular result sheet, because it's actually the key to actually collation of results. And let me be clear here. There are even accusations of some, my good friend, Mike Igney, is being at the front burner of an issue, and people are demanding for him to give them electoral result sheet. And the man refused, and then they are calling for his head. These are some of our credible electoral resident commissioners who are hell-bent on doing the right thing for the interest of the people. So there must be any form of intimidation and coercion or attempt of bribery to intimidate these particular officers who are ready to do good work for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that brings us back to the issue of, there was a governor who said clearly that he wants to win. And if he wants to win, they involve themselves in all kinds of malpractices that may end up jeopardizing the process of electioning. And so therefore, the whole accusation cannot be totally on us as politicians, but we should also help to make sure that those who are saddled with the responsibility of doing the right thing are being encouraged so that they will not be intimidated in their duties. And look, we must take care of this issue because of our future. We can't continue to go back on keep on doing the same thing again and again. And that is why we are not democratically improving.
All right, Dr. Tanko, thank you very much. Dr. Chris Akomas, let's have your own take on this about allegations of mop-up of unclaimed PVCs and redistribution to willing buyers, as well as the allegation about result sheets being a prized item in the hands of potential riggers of the election. What needs to be done?
Before we go to what needs to be done, let's look at what drives the interest of those that go for this. This is a contest. People want to win. Some, by playing by the rules, some playing against the rules. Result sheets in the hands of unauthorized persons can never and not be useful unless they have unscrupulous elements within the ranks and file of the umpire, the electoral body. Because if there is no collaboration, the result sheets become useless. So also the issue of these, somebody collecting PVCs that belongs to others and all that. And that is why now you hear people campaigning and saying, look, before you start the accreditation, make sure the card reader gives you 001 and things like that. Because somebody somewhere, that is the suspicion, that somebody somewhere may preload those information. So both the PVCs and the result sheets in the hands of unauthorized persons can only be useful if they have the collaboration of people within the INEC, the electoral officers. But if they don't, it becomes counterfeit in their hands. It just becomes normal destiny. But do people go out to look for this? Yes. Do they succeed in using it? Sometimes, and indeed most times, they do when they have collaborators. Should we look for ways of ensuring that this stops and should not happen? That is key. That is what we should be working on, and everybody should key into that because it's important. And when people talk about politicians, there is no aspect of the system in this country, be it electoral system, be it whatever system in this country that we go through without those that are considered technocrats, public people that are seated, who over the years have developed the system, understand the ways, and they're the ones pioneering and piloting people along, because the tortuous system. So let us all commit to making democracy is beautiful, it's wonderful, and it helps all of us. Let us stabilize this democracy and move forward.
Dr. Komas has actually spoken like a politician, who's been in the field, because it is becoming a tradition in all our election cycles, that sensitive materials are found in the hands of unauthorized persons. I've been privileged to cover an election, and to tell you the truth, you'll be shocked that it is even prominent persons, the homes of prominent persons that are used to do the thumbprinting and signing of whatever document. And as Dr. Komas pointed out, there must be a collaboration with an insider, in the INEC for that to work. And if it has been happening, it means it has been working. So that's why it is very apt that Kingsley raised that question, because people are rumoring, well, it's an allegation and what have you, but it will play out, if action is not taken in proper direction to curb that come 23rd of February 2019.
Kyria, well, we have some tweets, but just the last question I want to ask Professor Abdullahi Shehu. Again, this has also arisen in the context of the postponement of the elections and the attention focused on INEC. Some have said that how different all of this might have been if the same attention were focused on the state independent electoral commissions that conduct local government elections, and the party in power in the state wins the election 99.999, almost 100%.
Well, the focus on INEC is justified. This is a federal election.
So state elections are immaterial?
No. We'll come to that. This is a federal election, and therefore the INEC is responsible for this entirely, and therefore the attention has to focus on INEC. It has generated a lot of distrust or mistrust, as you can put it. It has also generated a lot of issues of confidence building. But the important thing that the INEC chairman said that really gave me confidence in that, he said the postponement was not inspired by any influence from any political and from anywhere at all. Secondly, it was not the issue of security. And thirdly, it's not because they don't have money. it was just something that they never expected it would happen. And it is true. Nobody would have expected that what had happened would happen. Now it has happened. What we need to do is, sincerely speaking, is to see the future of Nigeria in the electoral process by sitting down after the election to have a national discussion as to what we should do in a meaningful and sincere way to improve the electoral process in Nigeria. We must look at the role of INEC as the entire national electoral body, as the empire. What we should, the responsibilities put on INEC, I think they are too much. We will need to find a way by which, even if we will have to allow INEC to remain as the electoral body, we should segregate some functions so that at least they can be relieved of some of the responsibilities. With respect to the State Electoral Commission, we also need to look at that. The electoral commissions are just mere creation of the state governors because they just appoint people that they know they can use them anytime. And you have seen how they turn them around. When they fix election date, they will tell them we don't have money to conduct the election. Until such a time that they are agreeable to the fact that, well, yes, it is the governor who will decide how the election will go, that the election will go. So we need to sit down and look at the laws again and look at the recommendations that have been made in the committees that were set up to see what we can do in terms of improving the process, especially. Thank you.
We thank you. That's well spoken. We have some tweets here, and let's look at them quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Let me start from Khalid. Khalid is on the third page of our second set of tweets. It says the arrest of fake ballot papers, PVCs from INEC officials and party chairman with already prepared result sheets in some states made me doubt. That's the Khalid now. The credibility of the forthcoming election. That's why I second the idea of snatch at your own risk. May God help us.
Okay, but Khalid, you know that none of them has been proved.
That's right.
Yet. Now, a similar tweet from BSM. It says, snatch at your own risk is sacrosanct, and without fear or favor, the law is clear about ballot snatching, and the president's directive is in order. Laws are laws, and they are made to be followed. Remember, even in hell, there exists an order.
Cecilia Okoroma tweets, why should anybody scuttle the election by stealing ballot boxes and burning INEC offices? Those who do it must be dealt with. Let God deliver us from the hands of evil planners and give us peace.
And Mustafa Bukar Kolo says, good morning, Nigerians. Yes, the elections have been postponed. Here is question to ask. How sure is the INEC chairman in terms of securing the already distributed sensitive materials? We all know how Nigerian politicians are very eager to win elections, no matter the costs. God bless Nigeria.
All right. Amokbola on tweets, in part, says, INEC cannot afford to get Nigerians disappointed again. The commission must be thorough, and the contest must be seen to be free, fair, and credible. Karen, I think those are the tweets that we have for today. We'd like to thank our viewers who have sent in a number of the tweets. It's on that note, of course, we'd like to also appreciate our guests who have been with us in this conversation. From Port Harcourt, we were joined by the Resident Electoral Commissioner for Rivers State, that's Obo Efanha. We can see him there on the right side. It's on the top of the screen there in the Niger Delta hat. And below him is Awal Mohammed Mashi. He's Administrative Secretary of INEC in Kaduna State. Gentlemen from the outstations, thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. And here in the Abuja studios, our deep appreciation to the presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party, that's Dr. Yunus Atanko. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very
much. Our appreciation to Professor Abdullahi Shehu, who is of the Election Observation Platform, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, as well as the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akomas. Dr. Akomas, thanks a lot for being around. Let's go over very quickly to our foreign desk for some stories.
And with that, we conclude today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. We'd like to see you again tomorrow when we come with a fresh edition of the Breakfast Show. My name is Kirian Umayo, and have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, joining Kirian to thank you for being with us. Do enjoy the rest of your day.